Welcome to Mindful Conversations. My name is Greg Dwyer. My guest today is Rich Sear. Today we're going to talk about the topic of never giving up. Rich, thank you for being on our broadcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So you were born with CP. What exactly is CP?
Cerebral palsy. So what it is I guess it's a disease that you're born with. It usually happens from a birth defect. So when I was born, and this I'm telling you the year for a reason. It was 1968. So like we don't have the technology that we have today. So I was born early, and there was a lack of oxygen to the brain. Excuse me. So I was born brain damaged. Basically, for the most part, the left side controls the right side controls the left in layman's terms. So, I mean, there's a little bit more to the human body than that. But, so the whole left side of my brain is completely dead. But it happened right when I was born, so the right side overcompensated for the left. So even the doctor said, he goes, you shouldn't be here. You should be a vegetable. I was given the last rites 3 times. They thought I would never walk, I would never talk. And luckily, all it did was affect my right side, but it didn't affect the speech, didn't affect my eyesight. All it did was affect my right arm and my right leg. So it's basically, so I know other people that have cerebral palsy or cerebral palsy, and it's usually from a birth defect.
So you're a miracle.
Pretty much.
So we're talking today about this concept of never giving up. And a lot of times people think, oh, I can't do something. Has that ever crossed your mind that you just can't do something?
No. It actually makes me want to do something even more. Whenever somebody says, I don't know if you can handle it, I can do it. Get out of the way. Let me try. And I've always been like that. I've never, ever let something get me down. I just said, the more I struggled with it, the more I wanted to do it, the more I said, no, I'm going to get through this. And I'll give you an example. When I was 10 years old, I loved playing baseball. So I used to throw the ball up in the air, take the glove off, put it back on, catch it, take the glove, So I said, let me join the league. And the best part is about this whole thing, everybody kept on telling my mother, oh, you should put him in a special class, you can get this and that. She goes, nope, I want him to grow up exactly with the regular classes, the regular kids. I don't want to have him put in there with special, in a special class. So same thing with baseball. I said, let me try this. So I taught myself to field the ball so quickly that, say I was in the outfield, I played the outfield, so it was the easiest. So I would catch the ball, take the glove off, throw the ball to the infield, put the glove back on. Nobody even knew I was doing it. I was so quick with that. I ended up having the highest average in the league. I was on the all-star team, and most of the teams in that time in that league were chosen by neighborhoods. I was the only person that was actually drafted by another team. They're like, I like his hustle. I like how aggressive he is. Right. I want him on my team.
So how did you get this mindset? Was this something your dad taught you? Is this something your mother taught you? Brothers, sisters, relatives? I mean, how did you develop this? Did you read it in books? I mean, how did you come across this way in this mindset?
I think it might be all of the above. I can't really think of one thing that stands out, but I mean, I love to read, and my parents have always been very, very supportive of everything. They never said, oh, I don't know if you could do it. They're like, Rich, go for it. I know you could do it. So I've always had their support. And I have 2 brothers, and we used to always, play around with, like we had, my grandfather built the road that we lived on. So we had a lot of woods. We had a railroad that he built around the pond. So, I mean, we're always outside doing things, and I was always very active. And I never, ever let it get in the way of, like, my brothers would never go off like, oh, don't worry about Rich. Why don't you stay here? You won't be able to handle this. So, like, I think the support of everybody around me probably was a great help to me. Where I never felt defeated. I never felt deterred, like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. I just said, come on, let's go.
So you never saw yourself as a person that has a handicap or someone that, doesn't have the ability to do something. And when someone tells you, hey, you probably can't do that, you're thinking to yourself, I can do that and I will do that. What are some other examples of things that you've done? I know you've done stand-up comedy. Yeah. I know you just wrote a book. You were just in Barnes & Noble here locally. Yes. And you had, the biggest crowd ever?
They said it was the biggest local author book signing they've ever had. I sold 20 books. The only reason I didn't sell more is because I ran out. I sold out of the books. Yeah. I could have sold more, and they said that they had Howard Stern's producer there. Wow. And they said I had more people at my book signing than his.
So how did that happen? Did you reach out on social media? Did you reach out to your friends? Is it just because you're so popular? I mean, how did you get so many people at that book signing?
Actually, it was a mixture of all 3, because I do have a lot of friends, and I'm on social media a lot, and somebody actually said, I think it might have been you or somebody else, is like the latter day P.T. Barnum.
Yes, you are. You are.
I love, there's a lot of people I know, especially when I was in comedy. You mentioned I did stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
I love promoting myself, and most people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to seem, I said, you have to sell yourself.
Right.
You have to like let everybody know that you're the best thing. You have to be there. You don't want to miss it. If you miss it, you're going to feel left out. And I'm very good at promoting myself, and I think that was one of the big reasons that I had so many people there, because one, I do have a lot of friends, and also I'm always on social media, and people are are great sharing my posts and letting other people know that. So I've had a lot of people that I didn't even know there. Oh, let me give you an example. At that book signing, I had people from middle school, elementary school, the band days, some comedians or something. I had like almost every faction of my life at that book signing.
Wow, that's great. What's the name of the book?
It's called Confessions of a Frenetic Mind.
And what is this book about? Is it a book of horror stories? Is it true stories? Is it about the supernatural? What's it about, and how did you get inspired to do it, most of all?
Well, I've always loved writing short stories, and the book is filled with 5 short stories. They're all fictional stories, and they're all different. One is about the supernatural, and I was inspired to write this because when I was doing stand-up comedy, I had a person who said, Rich, I work for this place called Abilities Beyond. I think you would be a huge inspiration to my students. Why don't you come and talk to my students? His name is Paul Starry-Bratt. I think you know him now.
Yeah, I do know him.
Yeah, so he saw me, and I went down to his Abilities Beyond, and I was talking to his students, and I said, what would you like to do? And she said, I'd like to be a writer. I said, well, what's stopping you? And she goes, you're right. And so I started talking to her. I said, you know what, when I was little, I used to love writing because I was severely shy. I don't know what happened.
Wait a minute, stop. You were severely shy?
Severely shy.
Okay, so when did you get over being shy? And I mean, how did that happen?
Right.
What's the story behind that?
I have no idea why, because, and I'll tell you, because usually sometimes people say, oh, were you picked on in school? And I can give you an example. When I was in 4th grade, when kids are probably at their meanest, I was going for an operation on my leg.
Okay.
And all the kids in school were like, what's going on? I'm going to the hospital. For what? My leg. They're like, what's wrong with your leg? I said, cerebral palsy. Oh, I forgot about that. So
they forgot. They didn't even
back
know.
then, they're like, it's just like, after a while, they said, I don't even see it. So these are kids in 4th grade. But the best thing about that is my favorite team was the Red Sox. My favorite player was Jim Rice at the time, back in 1978. So my teacher knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody that knew the Red Sox. So when I came back from the hospital, I see all the 4th grade classes, and I see a newspaper report. I said, what is going on? And Jim Rice gave me an autographed ball, an autographed picture, and it said, get well soon. So the article is my favorite article of all time. It says, a special gift for a special boy.
So what would you say to someone that's watching this and, maybe things aren't going well for them? Maybe financially things aren't going well. Maybe their career isn't going well. Maybe relationships. Maybe they're having trouble with their wife or husband, or they feel depressed. I mean, what would you say to somebody that's focusing on all of that negativity? What would you tell them to focus on?
All the positive things in their life. I mean, you could be at your lowest, and believe me, I'm not always, Mr. Happy, but whenever I get to that point, I was like, you know what? Life really is not that bad. I mean, I have my health. I have a lot of good friends. I'm always busy. I have a lot of different things which we'll get into later that I'm doing. So I would always think, sometimes like, oh, you know what? Don't worry about what you didn't get. Worry about the things that are ahead waiting for you.
Right. I'm reading this book right now called Happy, Darren Brown, and he's talking about that if you make more money, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be happier. If you achieve a goal, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be more happier. It's about really being happy right now, whether you have something or you don't have something. And to be grateful for what you have really inspires you to go with what you're looking for, and then once you get that, you'll be happy. But if you're constantly chasing after happiness, a lot of times it will just disappear the minute you get there.
Well, I think the big problem now, especially in this age, is social media.
Yeah.
Because everybody goes on there like, oh boy, they're having such a great life. Their life is so much better than mine. It's like, you know what? This is a staged photo. Not everybody is this happy all the time. I'm just saying, like, people.
Yeah, it's true.
Don't even compare yourself to anybody else. Like when I did comedy for a while, everybody used to say, oh, I can't believe they got that show. How'd they get at the show? I said, they're not the last person to get the show. Why can't you? Don't worry about what they're doing.
Right.
Why don't you try to get on the show? But they're so worried about everybody else doing something. So I never ever was deterred even by that comedy. And it was funny because I've done, in 4 years, I did over 400 shows, 9 different states, and I played a lot of the major comedy clubs like Joker's Wild, Funny Bone,
Yep.
Zanies, Comedy Connection, and everybody said, "Who's your manager?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I don't have a manager. How do you get all these shows?" I said, "It's called networking." And like
Right.
what would go back to
Yeah.
social media. And what I would do is I would, during a show, introduce myself to different comedians, and I'd say, "Oh, and you run a show. I'd love to be on your show." And I would put together my own benefits, and I would put the.
Yeah.
So it's all about networking. But getting back to the shyness really quickly, when I was in 8th grade, my teacher sent me to the school psychologist and said, "Can you talk to him? I want to find out why he won't talk to anybody." And I don't know what he said, but I just hope he got a promotion because now I won't shut up.
Well, let's go back to this social media thing because I have 2 thoughts on it. Number one, people feel inadequate. So they scroll through and they see what their friends are doing, and then they feel depressed that so-and-so is doing this or a radio show or comedy like you're doing or writing a book. But they don't see what goes on behind the scenes. They don't see the disappointments. They don't see everyday life. It's edited. It's like a movie.
Exactly.
You only put in what you want people to see, right?
Yeah, it's like a still shot and it's the end. You
Right.
didn't see the beginning. It's sort of like was it Behind the Music? Remember that TV
Yes,
show?
I do. Yeah, exactly. You don't. And a lot of these guys crashed and burned.
Exactly.
You know?
So, and then always at the end, they had them on their way, on the rise up again. So that's all you're seeing is that final shot where everybody's successful, happy, but and I never ever, I mean, even if some of those shots are true.
Right.
Who cares? Like, just worry about your own life, worry about your own happiness. You don't have to compare yourself to anybody else.
Right. And I find, too, that it's somewhat of an addiction. I don't wake up in the morning and look at Facebook. I refuse to do it. I used to spend hours on Facebook looking at feeds, and I thought to myself, this is wasted time. I could be reading, I could be networking, I could be doing something productive. So when I get up in the morning, I put the computer away, and I look at it in the afternoon or, look at the emails. So what's the next step for you?
Well, let's see. So right now, I've stopped doing comedy for a while, but I keep getting asked to do more shows. So I took a little break, but now I'm getting that itch again. So maybe I might get back into it. But I think what's starting to maybe get the itch is because I started doing motivational speeches.
Yes.
I started going around to libraries, schools, and I started talking about my life and telling them, I think overcoming objections and never letting that get in the way of fulfilling your dream.
Right.
That's basically, and never give up. Is basically the short version.
We did one in Meriden together.
Yeah.
That was for, I don't know, about 50 kids, I think. They were high achievement kids.
Yeah, that went very well.
It went really well. So I think you spoke for about 20 minutes. And then I know you did a library presentation with me. I think that was in Bethlehem.
It was.
And then we have one coming up in Farmington in July. And then you just talk about never giving up, which I think is a message that most people need to hear.
Yeah, and the people I spoke with after the thing was over, the motivational speech was over, they said, thank you very much. That meant a lot to me. I'll remember this. And I think that sometimes you don't even realize, like for me, I'm just living my life, and I don't realize who I'm affecting and how I'm affecting them. So a lot of times people come up to me and it's like, you know what, you really inspire me. I really do appreciate that. I'll give you an example about that. When I was doing comedy, I just said, I have cerebral palsy, and there was a kid in a wheelchair. He said, finally.
That's great.
And so he was a comedian, or he is a comedian.
Right.
So afterwards, I became friends with him on Facebook, and then maybe about 2 months later, I received a text. He goes, Rich, can I call you? I said, yeah. So he called me up. He goes, I just want to say thank you very much. I said, for what? He goes, ever since I met you, I've been doing comedy all over. I became much more motivated. I did a couple different states. I really want to thank you because after seeing you, it made me realize that I can do it too.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not even thinking about that. I just living my life, having fun, but then I've been inspiring people in a positive way.
Well, you have a very positive attitude, and you're very friendly. You work in the public.
Yeah.
People like you, and you can meet people that the glass is half full. No matter what's going well, they're always focused on what not is going well or what isn't going well,
Yeah.
I should say. But you're the kind of guy that focuses on what's going well, and you're always looking for opportunities to promote and to help people.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And whenever something, I never think of anything as a failure either.
Yes.
What I mean was, say I tried one thing and I fell flat on my face, I'll get up and try it again. But say most of the time, or maybe even all the time, the time I fell flat on my face, that opened up a door to something else I never even knew existed.
Right.
And so like
Exactly.
doing the comedy introduced me to the motivational speeches, which introduced me to, the writing. I mean, all of it just like bam, 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 fell in a row. And then another example is I also do a radio show,
Right.
which is it's called Nutmeg Junction, and it's paying homage to the old radio serials like Flash Gordon. So I play a different character each week, and I'm on 13 different stations, including Canada.
So when do you sleep?
I don't.
You don't sleep at all. I mean, it sounds like you're really driven to make
Yes.
a difference in people's lives.
Yes, and I just love having fun. So,
Okay, yeah, I get
So
that.
there's a mixture of both, and but that came from me being a guest on the show, and when he was interviewing me, he was like this. You'd be really great in this. Do you want to be part of the show? I said, yeah. The thing is, I never ever say no. Because if you say no, you're just going to miss out on so many opportunities. And I can give you another example.
Well, wait a minute. Before you do that, most people do say no, and I'll tell you why. I think most
afraid.
people are afraid. They're afraid to step outside of their comfort zone.
Yep.
I read a thing in a book the other day. We have like 50,000 thoughts every day, and 90% of them are the same the next.
I know.
So people love comfort.
See, I hate comfort.
You hate comfort.
I'll tell you, I love being out of my comfort zone. And one of the things I talked about, and I've listened to your speech, and you're very inspiring as well.
Thanks.
But one of the things I say is like, try something new and uncomfortable every day, something you've never done.
Right.
Then the next day that will be comfortable. Then maybe the next day try something that you've never done. So eventually everything that you thought was going to be so scary and so uncomfortable is going to be like next to nothing. It's good.
Isn't it like sitting there as a 9-year-old thinking there's something underneath the bed?
Yeah.
And then you go and look underneath the bed and you realize there isn't anything under the bed, and then you're like, what am I thinking here? My thinking's not true.
The unknown is always much scarier than the known. And I always say, here's what I go through in my head. I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
If nobody laughs at my jokes, if nobody likes my book, I'm still going to be alive. I'm still going to keep walking. It's not like I'm going to like drop dead. So there's really nothing bad that can happen to me. With the things that I've done and still continue to do, you just develop a thick skin, and I can really care less what people think.
So I was going to ask you that. You don't necessarily care what people think.
No.
Okay, so I heard this thing the other day that if you wake up and you're the only person alive, you probably won't drive the most beautiful car, you won't live in the biggest house because you won't care because there's nobody else around. But you have that attitude now.
Yeah.
And the other thing I heard is that when you pass away, when you die at your funeral, there might be 10 people there that will cry. The rest of the people won't be there, or they won't even cry. So why are we playing to a crowd that's never going to applaud?
Exactly. That's why here's my I always say this. I'm like, if you don't like me, get out of the way. If you do, come along for the ride. I'm having a good time.
I like you, and I'm glad we're working together.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're doing this with. This is our first show. I've never done this before, and it's a pleasure having you here. So we're going to do this show in Farmington, and you're going to do motivational speaking. You got 15 minutes. What are you going to say in those 15 minutes? What's going to be your title of that message?
My message is, well, it's the shortened version, which I just like. What I like is never give up.
Right.
But it's usually in the past it's been overcoming all objections to fulfilling the dream.
Wow.
And I just basically right now I'm just started doing the motivational speeches, so I'm trying different things.
Yes.
But I'm more about like talking about my experiences, what made me to where I am today. And most of the time, or actually all the time, there's at least one person out there, and mostly more, that say, you know what, that really inspired me, and just hearing that you could do it, gives them the like courage to maybe just try something new and try something different that they've never even thought of doing. So that's what I'm still toying around with different ways to do it, but that's the main focus right now is overcoming objections.
It takes time. I mean,
exactly.
people, when people see somebody get up and speak or give a sermon or they give a presentation and it's well polished, a lot of times people think they're just ad-libbing, but in truth, it's scripted, it's worked, it's rehearsed. They've taken it out on the road 100,000 times and they've taken things out. Yeah. It's not an easy process.
No. I'll give you an example. Robin Williams. Everybody, I mean, the genius of Robin Williams was that he made everything seem like it was coming off the top of his head.
Right.
In reality, I saw him a couple times live, and he was doing the same set that I saw him on TV, but it makes it seem like, oh, wow, how did you just come up with that?
Yep.
And Howie Mandel's the same way. So, yeah, you see the end product, and you don't see, like, that's why we can get into this if you really want to, but like these shows like American Idol, and so I don't like the fact that there's like, I like the days of a 20-year overnight success where you actually have to work to get to there. Right. Now it's just like, all right, let me do a karaoke show and I'm going to be a superstar.
And I wonder how much of that is fixed. I wonder how much of that is not reality, because a lot of these reality shows are not real at all.
Well, I can tell you an example. One of my friends, who's a comedian, was on America's Got Talent, and they had a clip of him, and I said, that's not true. They went over his house. I said, that's not even his house. So that.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. Yeah. That was real, and I said, this is a joke.
Right.
And the whole thing was fixed, and then he did this joke, and they showed the whole crowd laughing. I don't even know if they were laughing at his joke. I think that they sort of spliced it in. I'm not even kidding.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. I know a guy that's a comedian, and he does motivational speaking, and I won't mention his name, but if you go on his website, you see him on the stage, and it's a shot over his shoulder, and it shows all the audience members. There's thousands of people in the audience, and when you really look at the photo, it's about 10 people, and it's duplicated out.
Yeah.
It's not 1,000 people, it's 10 people. Things are not what they appear to be.
No, and that's why I was in Tennessee one time, and there was this show called Antique Picker, something I can't remember, something like that, about antiques. And he said he was supposed to be on that show, but what they told him was that we're going to give you about 4 or 5 antiques, and people are going to come. And he goes, I don't want to do that.
Right.
He goes, well, if you don't do that, you're not going to be in the show. Well, I don't want to be on your show then. So they were basically telling him what he was going to be giving away on the show, and he says, that's not even my merchandise.
Right.
So yeah, example after example of like reality TV is anything but reality.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I don't even own a television set. I haven't had a TV in my house for over a decade. It's probably more than that. It's probably 2 decades.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the news on the internet, but I don't sit and watch the television. I just think a lot of it is just not true. I mean, we could talk about politics, but we don't have that much time, maybe on the next episode.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, what you see and what you think is real is not real. And this is why I love this dialogue, because this is not rehearsed. No. We have no cue cards. I have no notes. We're just talking heart to heart. So the last 3 or 4, 5 minutes that we have left, I just want to ask you this question.
Yes.
How do you want to be remembered as far as like leaving behind a legacy for your family? I know you're getting married soon.
Yes.
And your parents and your relatives and just the community. How do you want to be remembered?
I think maybe, not maybe. I definitely would love to be remembered as making a difference in people's lives for the better.
Right.
And like I said, the best part is that I'm not even trying, I'm not going out there trying to say, well, let me do this, see if I can change somebody's life. I'm just living my life, and I'm having the best time, and people see that, and they're drawn to it, and then they're inspired by that.
Right.
And I'll give you another example really quick of how anything could lead to an opportunity. With my girlfriend, I went to go see Mamma Mia. They were showing at the Strand Theater.
Oh, yes.
So everybody's just sitting there. And
I was just at the Strand Theater last weekend.
Yeah, I love that place.
Yeah.
And you might want to come again, because I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So when I was there, nobody was getting into it, and they have a stage. So I jumped up on the stage, started dancing. Everybody started getting cheering. So then on the way out, the owner said, can I talk to you? And she said, you're really great at getting the audience motivated. She goes, would you like to come here and host some movies? And I said, yeah. So I hosted Beetlejuice, The Grinch, and The Blues Brothers so far. And then they were already talking to me about hosting A Hard Day's Night and some other movies.
Wow.
So just me having fun, that led to another job opportunity.
Wow. Well, the other thing is I'm thinking of that movie. What was it called? Yes Man? Remember that movie?
Oh, yeah, Jim Carrey.
And that sounds like you. Like if an opportunity comes your way, you're just going to say yes to it. So how do people get a hold of you on Facebook?
It's Rich Cyr, C-Y-R.
Okay. And you have a big following?
I do. I have about 4,000 friends.
Oh, wow. Are you going to be doing another book signing soon at Barnes & Noble? You have anything coming up with that? Are you going to write another book?
I'm in the process of writing some new stories.
Okay.
And it might even turn into a novel. So the other 5 were short stories and 2 novellas. But I did do another book signing. I was a featured speaker at the Author and Book Expo at the Torrington Library. And it was not too long after the Barnes & Noble, so I was kind of wondering how it was going to go. But all I know is that I sold 9 books, 2 T-shirts, and 1 mug of my book. And then the other authors were like, well, I sold one. So even there, I think I sold probably more. But that's only because I was out there. I did 2 radio shows, a podcast, and I think I was also on your other TV show.
Yeah, you've been on a couple podcasts. Yeah. You've been on the TV show in Torrington.
And promoting it.
And you're a guy that does not let the grass grow under your feet.
No.
So I just want to thank you for being my first guest on Mindful Conversations.
I'm honored.
Never give up. We're here with Rich Sear, and we'll have to have you back. So we'll see you next time. That was wonderful. That was good.